All right, so good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming today for our installment for our Gator Success Workshop today titled Study Skills 101. This is put on by the Gator Success Center here at the University of Houston downtown, and we're very thankful for you all to be here with us today. My name is Jason Holliday, and I serve as the Associate Director of the Gator Success Center. Today, we're going to be talking about study skills, how to study effectively, and different methods and strategies to kind of help you on your upcoming exams. So at any point in time you have a question, please hop in and give me a hand raise, or just jump in and join the conversation. We really would like to know more about how you study effectively and the strategies you utilize to help you in your classes. And that goes for those who are also joining us via Zoom. If you're with us via Zoom, we're very thankful for you to join us today. If you have a question, you have a comment, you have a concern, please feel free to utilize that raise hand feature or use the comment section to allow us to push the conversation forward while we're talking about study skills and how we can be a better student here at the university when it comes to our exams. Thank you again for joining us today. Before we begin and we start talking about study skills and all of those types of things, we want to kind of talk about success and kind of talk about what it means to be successful here at the university and what it means to be successful when it comes to your academics, right? I love to start with this quote because the quote comes from John Maxwell, and John Maxwell basically states that successful and unsuccessful people do not vary greatly in their abilities, they vary in their desires to reach their fullest potential. That successful and unsuccessful people do not vary greatly in their abilities, they vary in their desires to reach their potential. So when we're talking about success, the difference between those who are successful and not successful, it just basically has to deal with their abilities and their desires to want to achieve their greatest potential. If you're a student here at the university and you want to do well in your classes and you're determined to do well in your classes, you're going to achieve your fullest academic potential by being a successful student. But if you're one of those students who are not very motivated to be here, if you're one of those students who have not been able to go to class consistently, then you're going to have yourself in a world of trouble and find yourself in a world of trouble by not doing well in your classes. We have in our midst via joining us Zoom is our other associate director, Ms. Donna Dotson-Tibbs. If you want to just come on and say something and do an introduction for our people here at our workshop, that'll be great. Ms. Tibbs.
Good afternoon, all. I hope you all can hear me. Welcome to your, I believe this is the 5th of 11 workshops. Mm-hmm. And you have a very good facilitator who will educate you in everything that you need to know to help you navigate through this semester and beyond. And I hope you enjoy the presentation and at least take away 2 things from what will be presented today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dotson-Tibbs. We're very glad to have you with us. So I'm going to poll you all and just kind of ask the people that are here in this room and also on Zoom. When we're talking about studying, what are some of the things that you do to get you prepared to study for your classes? Let's say that you have an exam that's coming up probably in the next 2 weeks or the next week. How do you prepare for that exam?
Normally, for me, it's flashcards. And if they have a study guide, I always do the study guide while I read.
Nice.
So to get it done 2 at the same time. And I review the PowerPoints.
Cool. So flashcards, PowerPoints, study guides, those are ways that you prepare to study. Cool. Did you have something that you want to share?
Last week, I think I had like a quiz, but the only thing I did was like go through my notes for that certain class like a few days before the actual quiz.
Cool. Awesome. Anybody via Zoom that wants to share? So all of those types of methods are very good for you to kind of help you when you're studying for your exams, whether you use like a visual aid or if you're the type of person that writes things down. What we want to kind of emphasize is that you have to make your studying your own, and we want you to study smarter and not harder. Although we know that college can be difficult to set into the routine of higher education for the very first time, even if you're returning to school, especially when you choose an accelerated curriculum or balancing classes with a full-time job, luckily old habits and new distractions don't have to stand in the way of your college degree. Thank you so much, Edgar, for joining us today. What we want you to do, as we already said, is to kind of make it and tailor your studying for your own individual needs. We know that a lot of our students are very inundated and kind of overwhelmed with all kinds of studying with their classes. They have to work, they have to balance their working outside the university and being a full-time student. But we want you to kind of study smarter and not harder. And one of the ways that you can study smarter and not harder is not waiting to the last minute. So when we're talking about the harsh reality of studying, many students realize that high school student study habits aren't very effective in college. This is understandable as college is quite different from high school. Professors are less personal involved, classes are bigger, exams are worth more, reading is much more intense, and class become much more rigorous. If I were to ask you all, how many of you all, when you were in high school, were the type of student to be able to study at the last minute and still be able to get an A? Like, let's say that you studied on a Thursday night and you'll still be able to do well on an exam on Friday. Got one, two?
I didn't need to study.
You didn't study, you just walked right into it?
I
No.
mean, like, actually, like, I think for the intense, like, practices at work, like, I got the concept, so I didn't need the
Really?
study here.
Really? Okay. Well, we're about to, okay, no, okay, cool. So I was the type of person that if I found out that I was having a test on a Friday, I was the person that studied Thursday night. I was the one that went in probably before the test started 30 minutes, be able to scan some notes and still be able to bang out an A. But when I came to the university, I tried to do these same methods and I didn't do too well my first semester. Actually, I really didn't do too well in my first semester. And I always felt like when I was in high school, I was just like, man, like I used to be so smart, like what happened? And the thing about it was is that I wasn't really studying. I wasn't diving into the material. I was just basically scanning the information, the PowerPoints, the study guides, the exams and stuff. And it really wasn't that useful. It wasn't really beneficial to me. I was just reading notes for the sake of reading notes and all those types of things. So as college students, what we have to try to do is to kind of break those bad habits of being able to, we have to break those bad habits in the one of procrastination, but also just skimming that information just for the sake of just skimming it, right? You're gonna learn more about this in this particular slide that it just talks about that reading is not studying. You're just basically reading notes. It says that simply reading and rereading texts or notes is not actively engaging in the material. It's just simply rereading your notes. Only doing the readings for class is not study. It is simply just doing the readings for classes. Reading leads to quick forgetting. So if you're just scanning the notes, if you're just scanning and looking over some highlighted text and that's all you're studying, you're not engaging in the materials. One of the things that I can honestly say is that if a professor has gave you all a great lecture throughout the entire semester or throughout that week, that if the person is emphasizing some information saying, you know, the assassination of this US president took place on this date, you probably, and they keep saying that over and over again, you may want to put that down. You may want to go ahead and write that information down because it's most likely going to be on exam. It's probably going to be, you know, in your future study guides or things of that nature. So let's talk about understanding the study cycle. So the study cycle was developed by Frank Chris. It basically breaks down the different parts of studying. And the different parts of studying kind of include previewing, attending class, reviewing, studying, and checking your understanding. So the first thing is previewing, seeing exactly what we are going to study for that particular day and time. Of course, attending class, because if you don't go to class, you're really not going to know what's going to be on the exam. Reviewing exactly what you learned in that class, studying it, which means going into the material and looking over and over again in that particular information that you just studied, but also checking your understanding. So previewing, attending class, reviewing, and checking your understanding. That's the study cycle that was developed by Frank Chris. Although each step may seem obvious at a glance, all too often students try to take shortcuts and miss opportunities for good learning. So if you develop this cycle of previewing, attending class, reviewing, studying, and checking your understanding, you'll have a better knowledge of the things and the understanding or the different materials that you just basically read and the things that y'all kind of have went over. Do we have any questions about like the study cycle, or have you seen like in your experience when you're studying that this is some kind of the methods that you have used before?
I feel like it's probably complicated to find the difference between studying and reviewing, because to me reviewing is just like studying.
Yeah, it's kind of interchangeable. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
A pro tip, any sort of extra credit assignments or something you see specifically in the readings, I would suggest to like keep that in mind, because some professors will actually use the same questions from a textbook
Yeah,
or notes in class.
from concept checks.
Yeah,
But for me, what she said, the reviewing and studying isn't differentiated. And also, it's a lot per class. So it's like either I'm acing one class as far as the cycle,
Mhm.
or I'm skipping steps in other classes so I can do it for other classes.
Gotcha.
So to be able to do it for all of my classes, it's like I have to basically put some classes on the back burner
That's-
and rush studying that last minute.
Yeah.
And then versus because there's the classes that you have quizzes every week,
Mhm.
and there's classes that you have tests 4 weeks from now.
Gotcha.
So that's my issue, time management.
Time management is definitely something that I struggle with even to this day. So, being able to balance, being able to know which classes to study for is a very good point. Thank you so much for saying that. This one basically just talked about that spacing out is good. One of the most impactful learning strategies is distributed practice, right? Or spacing out your study over several short periods of time, over several days and or several weeks. The most effective practice is to work a short time on each class every single day. So going back to your point, talking about being overwhelmed and knowing which classes to study for and not allowing it to go on the back burner. If you know that you have a class or you have like an exam or an important thing that's coming up in the next 3 weeks or whatever, this will be the good time to kind of start reviewing and looking over those class materials and those notes and spacing out each day to kind of get your mind to know exactly what it's going to be on your exam. It says basically in history, you can spend 15 to 20 minutes each day actively studying your notes for your class. So if you need to, now is a good time. One of the hugest things, and we're going to be talking about probably later in the presentation, is procrastination. Do not wait to the last minute to talk or to kind of study for an exam, especially in college. A lot of students have to work. A lot of people have to balance a whole lot of things. If you wait to the last minute, the chances are you're probably not going to be able to retain that information. So if you space out your time in a good amount of weeks, days, you'll be able to retain more information because at that point, once you've looked at something over many times over or a long space of time, you'll be able to retain the information a lot better. Okay. Also, this one is saying silence is golden, right? I really love this meme because I was a huge fan of all that back in the day. And we always saw like the loud librarian and it's basically saying like quiet, no talking to the library. But sometimes silence isn't always golden, right? Or silence is golden. Knowing where you study best. The silence of the library may not be the best place for you. It's important to consider what noise environment works best for you. I'm the person that got to be dead silent, right? It has to be dead silent where I'm at. I don't want no noise. I don't want to hear a pin drop. I don't want to hear no music, kind of. The only thing I may want to hear is like some ambient noises of like rain or something like that. But when I'm like trying to study, I don't want to hear other conversation. But to you all, that may be something that's different. Right? Maybe having like loud noises and making you focus on that material is the best method for you to study. Or maybe, having some music or some great R&B and neo soul. Please check out Ari Lennox if you haven't already. But if you haven't, maybe those types of things are helpful for you. Whatever noise environment is better for you, that's going to help you to study better. So know exactly what environment is best for you for when you're studying. So, well, although we're giving you all these tips, I want to kind of go over and kind of talk about some study habits to avoid. And if you see that you see yourself in these things, let's have a conversation outside of this because we really want to have some information or kind of break those bad study habits that people kind of have carried over from high school, right? So bad study habit to avoid is a poor environment, right? Poor environment can be anything. I don't want to say that the cafeteria is a poor environment, but if you are that social butterfly and all your friends are there in the cafeteria and they're coming to talk to you and kind of distracting you and all those types of things, that's a horrible environment. Do not do that. Also, another poor environment will probably be driving in a car with loud music or something. Why would you want to study with a car and in a car with loud music while you're driving? I don't know, but people try to test themselves and we want you to stay focused on that.
Crash like that, but okay.
We want to practice not only great study tips, but also safety when driving. So all of the things. Another thing is not using active study strategies. So that's another thing. Another thing is avoiding issues with different subjects, poor in-class engagement. I think that when we've talked about engagement with classes, a lot of students, when they're coming to a university, they have this anxiety, they feel shy, they feel all these types of things when it comes to talking to a professor. But that's what the professors are here for. They're here for you. So if you don't understand something in the class, whether that's something that they lectured on last week or the actual material, engage the professor, engage those questions and engage the people who are around you, because if you're just sitting there and you're not understanding what the professor is kind of lecturing to you, then you're just kind of wasting your time and it's a wasteful lecture. So we want to avoid poor in class engagement. No question is a dumb question. So please engage in class. Procrastination, I should have put that as number one because I'm a big procrastinator. And I know that we've all probably have faced procrastination in some form or fashion. 5 is poor organization. 4 is studying with friends. 3 is studying with music with the TV on. 2 is multitasking. And number 1 is all night cramming sessions. Like those cramming sessions, I used to love cramming when I was in undergrad because we used to have fun with it. There was a place in the basement of the library. It was called the Seaside. But after 11:30, we would see all of our friends go down and they turned into Club Seaside. Although we were doing like homework and stuff, we really weren't like being effective or anything like that. We were just kind of talking amongst each other. And it was just a great time to be social and just see who was actually in there. We looked like we were studying, but we weren't. We were just having a good time. But if you see that yourself is that you want to try to do those all night cramming sessions, we want you to avoid that because studies have shown that let's say that you are studying probably like an hour, let's say 5 hours or so, you're only really retaining probably that first hour, and anything after that, you're just kind of like wasting time. So we want you to avoid all night cramming sessions. So this here is the 8 effective study tips for college students. So we want you to kind of get into the mode of doing this. If you are able to do all of these nice types of things, this will help you to be a better college student. So number 1, we want you to take good and effective notes. So if a professor is going over something in the lecture and they are bringing up something that is common, we want you to make sure that you are having notes that are reflective of what the professor is actually saying in the classroom, so that when you review them, it kind of jogs your memory. We want you to review your notes every single day if you can. So if you're having a Monday, Wednesday class at 11:30 to 1 o'clock, let's just say that you had that lecture on Monday. On that Wednesday, it's always good to go back and see what you kind of talked about on Monday so that you can kind of know what that Wednesday class is going to look like. Number 3, alternate study locations. So if you are the type of person that likes to study in the library, switch it up. Like either go to, I don't know where else you can go besides the library.
Starbucks.
Oh, Starbucks. Oh my goodness. Are you talking about the one here on campus or just any Starbucks?
Starbucks in general.
Any Starbucks. Does Starbucks still do like I don't know if they had like a connection, like if you were in college, they give you like, it's something with like Wi-Fi and all this other stuff all the time. What time do they usually close?
The one over here closes around like 4, but like other Starbucks, they close till like 9.
They close at 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And the Wi-Fi is free.
Oh, it is?
sometimes.
Okay.
Because I used to work at Starbucks.
Oh, good stuff.
So like literally people would come in and do their work for their job
Really?
at Starbucks. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's always good. So Starbucks or any of those nice places.
McDonald's.
Who?
McDonald's.
You said McDonald's?
Yeah, they got
They
free
got free
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi there too.
Oh, they have free Wi-Fi. I thought you
Yeah.
said like to study there. Okay. I mean, if you're the
Good,
McDonald's
food is
type,
gonna get me.
I'm like, I would be eating more. So if I would like, if they had like a study session at Whataburger, I wouldn't be able to study. I'm one of them people. Number 4, we want you to get enough sleep. Also, studies have kind of shown that you need probably like 7 to 8 hours before an exam so that you can be fresh, ready, and recharged for an exam. So make sure that you get enough sleep, not only the day before the exam, but also consistently. If you're the type of person that is getting 4 to 5 hours and think that you're going to get 8 hours that day before, it possibly may not work. So please make sure that you get adequate amount of sleep. We want you to use flashcards, also join a study group. Don't immerse yourself in the subject matter, and please do not wait until the night before an exam to study because procrastination is bad. All right? Yes, ma'am.
so here's the thing about
Right. Take your time.
I'm a professional procrastinator
Same.
in the sense of I procrastinate with other things that I've also been procrastinating.
Oh, so you procrastinate on top of the procrastinate. Okay, cool.
So it's like I'm a single mom,
Cool.
plus I go to school,
Okay.
and plus I'm also trying to get internships, so that's just about hours working.
Gotcha.
So if literally like all these avoids, I'm like kind of doing them together.
Yeah.
So like, instead of like, don't study with the TV.
Oh, but you
And
have your, yeah. Mhm.
for me, like the stuff, the mindless tasks.
Yeah.
I do with TV. So like making my flashcards, I make audio flashcards,
Mhm.
but I also watch anime
Oh,
while I make the flashcards.
Yeah.
Or like I'll procrastinate doing one class or another class. So
Mhm.
it's like, again, I don't know if that's procrastinating or
It
doing
is.
what I need to do.
Well, I mean, you're staying on task, but you're also delaying the inevitable for another class. So it's just like, you're being productive with procrastination, if that makes sense, kind of.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, if you were to break down or attack a class each day, or just have some time that you can divvy up for each class, then that would probably work. But the way that you were saying with your flashcards, when you have like anime and stuff on, I think that that's kind of cool, because are you like actively watching the anime when you do it?
No, I watch not the stuff that, so for example, like One Piece is like 1 million episodes.
Yeah.
So it's nothing like extremely like intense in the story.
Mhm.
So like for those, I just speak the audio into it, and then I check it for the autocorrect. And like because I have a flashcard app. So yeah, I have other flashcards, but I realized I don't have time to write every individual. So it's easier to just speak it
Mhm.
and for it to make the flashcard for me. So
Oh, I feel so old now. Oh my God. No, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that that's really cool. Like, even being able to just, speak into those. Wow. And you can give me the information, because I have some stuff, because I'm in class too, taking classes, and I have exams and stuff. We'll talk offline, okay?
okay.
We'll just talk offline. So does anybody have any questions about what we kind of like talked about thus far, about the study tips, any of the thing about the spacing out, anything that have to do with Frank Christ's study cycle or anything?
In what way is listening to music bad when you're studying though?
Say what now?
Like when you're studying, why do you say like we can't use music?
No, so I'm just saying,
Oh.
because for me, I'm the type of person that gets distracted by anything.
Oh,
So like I would try to one of my favorite artists is John Legend. He helped me, his first album, Get Lifted, helped me to graduate from college and all of that. But I would find myself singing the song and not being able to like
Yes.
study. And then when I'm reading the thing, I'm just like, I'm bobbing to it. And I get distracted like off the rip. So if music is the type of thing that helps you and kind of pushes you, then definitely use that. If I'm just saying like loud distraction, like music that that you're not going to be productive on, then I would kind of avoid that.
oh,
Especially if you're like listening with music. See, that's how I turned into Club Seaside, because when we were down in the basement, we were playing any and everything. And it's just like, they couldn't say much of anything because we were actually studying, so.
Now we have lo-fi.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, lo-fi, yeah. So I love those. I love, what is this? Like, it's kind of like, it's calming type of like R&B, neo soul, lo-fi type of thing. It's good. Okay. What I have right now is like a short kind of 6-minute video. It's just basically talking about studying smarter, study less, study smart. Basically going to give you some quick tips on how to study better. What I'm going to do is play this little clip. We're going to kind of discuss it, talk about some other things, and then we'll be done. Okay. So this is going to be study less, study smart with Thomas Frank.
If you spent any time at all on YouTube looking for study advice, then you've probably come across this video called Study Less, Study Smart. Now, this is a recorded lecture from Professor Dr. Marty Lobdell, who is a former psychology professor at Pierce College and wanted to give his thoughts on how to be an effective student. And the video came out when I was a sophomore in college, and I wanted to watch it, but the problem was it was an entire hour long, and I could just never make the time. Now, I've seen a lot of students say the exact same thing about the video, so what I want to do with this video is try to give you about 80 to 90% of the value packed within the lecture in about 1/10 of the time. So to do that, I first watched the lecture myself and took detailed notes on it. And if you want those notes, I've actually included them at the end of this video. But first, let's get into the tips. So tip number 1 is to break your studying into chunked sessions. And the reason for this is that the average student can only really pay attention for about 25 to 30 minutes. And this goes across the board from lectures to reading to studying. After about 25 to 30 minutes, your efficiency starts to really taper off. And that's why the advice to simply study more is not effective at all. Instead, you want to break your study sessions into about 20 to 30 minute chunks. notes. And after those are done, take 5-minute breaks where you do something fun or at least away from your studies. And also, once your study sessions are done for the entire day, you want to give yourself a real tangible reward for doing it. As Dr. Lobdell says in the lecture, reinforcement of positive things builds good study habits. And as an added benefit, you're training yourself to study. So as you keep doing this, you're going to be able to study for longer and longer on each session. Tip number 2 is to create a dedicated study area. And the reason for this is that our environment, the context that we're in, largely determines our behavior. So think about when you're in class. When the professor presents a question to the entire class, you instinctively raise your hand. But if he asks you specifically, you're going to give a verbal response. And this is automatic. You're conditioned to do it. Well, your studying area is the exact same. If you do it in a place where you're conditioned to do other things like sleep or play video games or hang out with friends, it's going to be really hard to get into your studying. What you want to do is find an area that is specifically used for studying. So the context of the situation makes it easy for you to get into your studies. Dr. Lobdell's third tip is to study actively, and it's best summed up with this quote straight from the lecture. The more active you are in your learning, the more effective you'll be. Now, the best way to do this, rather than going through rote memorization or reading and rereading chapters from your book, is to first ask yourself before studying, what is it that I'm learning? And what you're learning is going to fall into one of two categories, either facts or concepts. A concept is something like, what does this particular bone in the human body do? You have to understand it. And a fact is just something you need to remember, what the name of this bone is. Now, concepts are more important than facts, because once you learn a concept, once you truly understand its inner workings, it's with you forever. You're going to remember it. Facts, on the other hand, can sort of drift away over time, and the good thing about that is that we have Google. We can look up facts very easily. Now, unfortunately, in a testing situation in class, you have to remember both facts and concepts, and you don't have access to Google usually, but still, concepts are going to be more important to learn first. Now, the best way to learn these concepts and to be sure you know them is to put them in your own words. Test yourself and learn actively. And there's one thing he gives as an example, which I think is one of the most important parts from the entire lecture, and it's his example about highlighting. Now, most students know not to highlight entire sections of the book, because if you do that, you're basically highlighting nothing at all. But if you highlight really important terms, and then you go back after your first read and highlight session and study them, and just simply recognize the thing you highlighted before and say, ooh, I know it, then you're getting into this dangerous territory where you don't know whether you're actually recalling something or simply recognizing it. Now, the human brain is very good at recognizing things. We can recognize people's faces even if we haven't seen them in a long time. But the difference between recognition and recollection is that recognition requires an initial trigger, a cue. And if you're in a test, there is no trigger or cue. You have to actually pull it forth from your memory. So to test and make sure that you're actually recalling something instead of just recognizing it, you need to quiz yourself. You need to do active studying and active learning. The fourth tip is to take more effective notes, and he's really brief on this one. Basically, he says, after class, as soon as possible, and truly as soon as possible, flesh out your notes a bit. Add some more to them so you can actually solidify the concepts in your mind. And if you're fuzzy on something, ask another classmate who also took good notes, or go to office hours or wait to the next lecture and ask the professor before he starts if he can clarify something that you don't really have a good grasp on. The fifth tip is to summarize or teach what you learn, and he says the best way to actually learn something is to teach it, and the reason for this is twofold. Number one, it's a great form of active studying because you're forcing your brain to recall all the information so you can basically summarize it for somebody, and number two, you're really making sure that you fully understand the subject. If you're explaining it to somebody who has absolutely no idea about the topic and they're coming at it from a beginner's perspective, then you're really going to have an easy time of pinpointing gaps in your own understanding. Tip number 6 is to use your textbooks correctly, and in this part of the lecture, he goes over the SQ3R method, which stands for survey, question, read, recite, and review. And as I talked about in my active reading video, I think overarching systems like this are actually kind of cumbersome and time consuming, but I do think it's important that you take individual portions of these systems and see if they're worth it for your studying methods. So as an example, the survey portion of SQ3R, surveying the chapter before you read it, and especially going to the end and looking at the review questions and the vocabulary can really prime your brain for picking out the most important information when you actually do the reading. And Dr. Lobdell's 7th and final tip is to use mnemonics when studying facts. Now, facts, as opposed to concepts, are a lot harder to tie actual meaning to, and as a result, a lot of students often turn to simple rote memorization to remember them. But a better way to go about it is to use mnemonics. And a mnemonic is really any system that facilitates recall, but he goes over 3 specific types of mnemonics in the video. And those 3 are acronyms, things like Roy G. Biv for remembering the color spectrum, coined sayings, things like in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and the third one, which both I and Dr. Lobdell think is the best one, image associations. Another way to think about image associations are just interacting images, including the thing you're trying to study, that create a ridiculous picture or story in your head. And the more emotionally evocative or weird it is, the more easily you're going to be able to recall that piece of information. So that is my summary of Dr. Lobdell's lecture. If you want to see the entire hour-long video, I have it linked down in the description. Otherwise, you can get my notes and other things in the end card. Thanks for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.
So there's a lot of information, but I think it was very useful and very relevant to what we were talking about. I think one of the biggest things I kind of got and I kind of saw myself was using the acronyms and stuff. So especially like when I was younger, the learning of the planets, I used to have like a very weird like saying, my very excellent mother just served us 9 pizzas. Those are like the planets. Mercury, okay. So it's crazy. But any of those things, whether that's acronyms, word association, or image association, or using those coined sayings and all those stuff, will be able to help you with studying. Another thing that I want to kind of talk briefly about was the Pomodoro method. So when we're talking about, this is our anti-procrastination type of studying, when we've already spaced out our time. Let's just say that you want to study over a 2-hour period. Basically, the Pomodoro method helps you to break up little breaks and give you a length amount of time so that you can study your stuff. So Pomodoro method is basically, number one, deciding what you want to complete. So let's just say that we're trying to study effectively for probably like 2 to 4 hours, right? We want you to set a timer for 25 minutes. And after you've done that, we want you to actively work to that 25 minutes. Once your timer goes off after that 25 minutes, you're going to take a 5-minute short break. Take a short 5-minute break, and you're going to repeat this 4 times. After you've done this about 4 times, you're going to take a longer break, about 15 to 30 minutes. So what you're going to actively get into is being able to retain the information, recall the information, but also be able to take a structured amount of time when you're studying. So the Pomodoro method is very cool. Why they use the tomato, I don't know, but it looks really cool. So yeah, so this is it. If you have any questions about the Pomodoro method, we would love to entertain those questions. Pomodoro method. Have any of y'all used Pomodoro method? Okay.
What is a Pomodoro?
Huh?
What is a Pomodoro?
I don't know. I'm gonna Google
Probably the
it.
name of the person.
Huh?
It's probably the name of the person who
Probably.
created it.
Pomodoro.
I thought it'd be like a certain type of tomato or
So
something.
tomato, like a little small one.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I've been hearing for years that you take breaks when you study,
Sure.
like for like 45 minutes or 25 minutes, as it says. Would it still be effective if I worked on something else, or do I have to completely stop studying?
Oh, no, you could definitely, with that break, I mean, a lot of people, what they'll probably do is go eat something. They'll probably go like listen to some music. They'll probably use that time as an actual break. It gets you out of that mode of like studying and stuff, and it's kind of rewarding yourself at that moment. And then you're jumping right back into it. So whatever you want to do during that time, let's just say, what is it that you're trying to do during that 25 minutes or 30 minutes or the 5-minute break?
So in that sense, it would be like me reading for my astronomy class.
Sure.
And then in my 5-minute break, I would go over flashcards for another class.
I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's definitely, I think that the 5-minute break just gives you a time to kind of reward yourself, take you out of that element for actively studying for that particular class, and then getting your mind off of it and then jumping right back into it. So you could definitely use that. Any of those kind of methods will be able to help you, whatever helps you to kind of retain the information and study effectively, I would definitely go for it. So studying for another class or looking over those flashcards, that would definitely help.
Just don't watch TV.
Please don't watch, well, you can, I mean, but if then your break will probably turn from 5 to like 20 minutes.
Unless the show you watch, it's like in the middle of a good plot.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you. So our Gator success summary for today is basically saying reading is not studying. So we basically talked about not just looking over the notes is not studying, it's just simply rereading just the words in a textbook or your notes and stuff. We want you to understand the study cycle with Frank Chris, which was the studying and previewing and going to class and all those types of things and checking your understanding. Spacing out is good. Procrastination is bad. So we want you to make sure that you are spacing out your amount of time when you're studying. So if you have a test that's come out in 2 weeks, study now and start to look over your notes now and space out that time. Silence is always golden. Please pick an environment that is good for you to study. If it's a library, cool. If it's the type of place where it has active ambient noises or just loud noises, and that helps you to focus, whatever is good, go ahead and use that. And number 5, we want you to avoid bad study habits like procrastination, studying with the TV on, hanging out with friends, or anything that is going to distract you from studying effectively on your exams. If you need any kind of assistance, we want to go ahead and show these resources that we have here at the university. We have a great academic resources center, and we also have great resources here to help you in your classes in different subjects and different types of things. So if you need anything such as academic success coaching to kind of see you where you're at and kind of help you where you're at throughout the semester, please visit us at the Gator Success Center in room North 310. And we'll be able to assist you with that. If you're having assistance or any kind of problems and need assistance with writing or essay writing, or looking for somebody just to read over your essays, we have in North 925 our Writing and Reading Center. And they're very amazing staff with Isidro Grau and all of his team that will help you to facilitate and kind of help you with your efforts to read, write, and think critically and to be able to communicate. We have our Center for Math and Statistics Support, which is located in that same room in North 925 that will be able to help you with mathematics and kind of give you some different strategies for you to be able to be good in your math. We also have our supplement instruction, which is located right here on this floor in South 405. So just want to have this little shameless plug. We want to thank you so much for coming out to our workshop today, which is entitled Study Skills 101. On next week is going to be an amazing presentation, because as we gear up going towards our midterm season and our exam season, we definitely want you to have great study skills. But maybe you're that type of person that has a lot of anxiety. Maybe you're stressed about school. Maybe you're suffering all kinds of things about what it means to be a college student. You just don't know how to kind of relieve that stress, and you want to put your health, your mental health in check and be in a good space. We are going to be partnering with our counseling services here, and they're going to be coming and bringing forth a presentation to help college students to combat and to kind of give a stress and mental health workshop. So we're very excited about that. Please tell your friends to come out to this one. If you have an opportunity, it's going to be on October 6th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. If you have any questions, if you haven't had an opportunity to go and talk to our staff and our counseling services on the second floor, please come out to this. This is going to be an amazing opportunity to get to know them and to be able to have those discussions about how do I alleviate my stress? How do I get my mental health in check? If you want more information, you can please follow us on social media platforms on Instagram and on Twitter, as well as our YouTube page at the Gator Success Center, where we'll be able to upload this presentation to those platforms, and we can have further discussions about any of the workshops that we have talked about in the past. But at this moment in time, since I've been talking, I want a little information from you all. So if you have any kind of questions, comments, and concerns, we can definitely entertain those right now. And please go ahead and scan our QR code if you are joining us here in the room or in the virtual world. Please go ahead, scan our QR code to give us a question or just leave us a comment on how we can make our workshops better, different things to help us to make this experience a little bit better. We would love to hear from you. And yeah, do we have any questions, comments, or concerns at this moment in time? Anything that has to do with studying effectively or how to study effectively?
I still don't get how to actively study without reading.
What do you mean?
Because you said that reading isn't studying.
Mhm.
So how am I actively studying?
Yeah. So let's take the word reading out of it. Let's just say like skimming. Let's say like skimming your notes and just like looking over the notes and not really actually grasping that information. So what I've seen is a lot of our students have they just look over the notes and kind of just skim through a book, and they're not really throwing themselves really into that subject matter. If you're just reading words and you're just reading and not retaining information, you're just reading those words. You're not really taking that information in. So what the slide could have better said is to read the information more in depth so that you can kind of get it so it can be retained, if that makes sense. If that makes sense. But thank you. I have to go back and do that slide over.
And I don't know if you can answer this, but how can you study less?
So I think that the way that you can kind of study less is being that type of person to kind of space out your studying. If you're the type of person that can study multiple sessions or multiple days, I think that would kind of be beneficial, because a lot of people, and what I've seen in my experience, is wait to the last minute. I'm definitely that person. I can tell you about a story that happened last week. Okay, so I'm leaving over. Let's stay here. I had a class at 5:30 on last Friday, right? And I was the type, I didn't read any of my emails. I didn't read any of the discussion boards. I was just gonna go to class and just go, class. I didn't know that at 12 o'clock that day that the professor sent an email to us to remind us about a huge presentation that we had in class at 5:30. And so I didn't read that email until 4:45 p.m. And so I was like, dang, what am I gonna do? I was able to go and put something together, a nice PowerPoint presentation. I eloquently hit these notes and all that stuff. But if I were the type of person to check my stuff regularly and not just get caught up in the day and put stuff off to like the last minute, then I would have been able to do a better job with that. And I think that when we're talking about studying and stuff, a lot of us feel as though that we really didn't learn how to study in high school. We didn't get those techniques when we were coming up. We were just told to kind of just like highlight information, look at it, and you'll be able to do it. But if you're the type of person that can space out your time and space to kind of like use more days, then you'll be able to see yourself using less days or less time to study. I think I have from our peer mentor, Raina. Thank you so much, Raina, for joining us. She says, was the question about active reading or active studying? If it's active reading could include summarizing a section you just read in a few sentences. The way that you can see what you do and don't understand. Then if you don't understand, watch a few videos or use external resources to help you better understand, then summarize your findings. That would be active reading. Active studying can work the same way, but you can do examples like quizzes, tests, and etc. Thank you so much, Raina. If you have time, Raina, do you want to go ahead and kind of just hop on and explain that? Or if you don't, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I can clarify that if anybody has like any further questions, but I try to be as clear as I could. Essentially, like if you're reading let's say you're reading chapter 1 of a textbook, you can see within the textbook, it's usually like broken into smaller subsections. So it could have like a header on there and it'd be like, okay, in this one, we're going to be talking about stress management. So if you're in a health class that I'm in, that's one of the things we're going over right now is chapter 1 is talking about a lot of different things, but one section was like stress management. It talks about a few different things in there, different methods. And then what I would do after reading a section with a header on it is I could write a summary on the side. That way I could summarize like what I understood and what I took from it. And then I could go back and see if I missed anything or see if there was something that I couldn't really put into my own words. And in that case, then I would do further external like searching to see how I could better grasp the concept. So you could do things like that. And same thing with your science classes. Like if you're going, like, let's say you're doing thermodynamics and you read about entropy, you didn't really understand entropy, then I could watch like a YouTube video or go to office hours and then like just take a few notes on what happened, what I read or what I listened to or what was told to me. And then if I'm still struggling, look for further resources. It's just actively like trying to learn a concept or a section. If you're reading a book and if you're doing a reading, you could summarize, like I said. And if you're doing science classes, then you could do like concept. It just depends on what class you're doing and what style of studying you're doing.
Cool, thanks so much. Well, go ahead. Oh, no, that was good. Thank you, Ryan. That was really good. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions or comments or anything? B, do you have anything that you would like to say or you good? Beatrice? We're all good. But like I said, we want to thank you so much for joining us today for our study skills workshop. Our next one is going to be on October 6th, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. with our counseling services here at the university. I think Tim Coulter will be the one who is going to be able to help and assist us. So I'm very excited about that because I need a couple tips to kind of reduce my stress even as a staff member. So we'll see you there. Like I said, any and all of our workshops are held in a hybrid fashion. So if you're there in Zoom world, and if you need more information, please follow us on our social media platforms at uhd.gsc on Instagram and on Twitter, as well as our YouTube page at the Gator Success Center. If you happen to be here for Dr. Cortez, Professor Cortez's seminar class, and you need extra credit verification, please send me an email to holidayj@uhd.edu. That is holidayj@uhd.edu, and I'll send a confirmation straight to your email, as well as CC Professor Cortez for that confirmation. Without further ado, this has been Study Skills 101. We look forward to seeing you all at Stress and Mental Health, and we hope that you have a blessed rest of the day and a great and productive week. Thanks so much for joining. Take care.
Topic.